Welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast, brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery. They had a fantastic hootenanny, and you know what? You can kind of sip your own little taste of everything that they've got. Check out the Breck Brew Locator for Broncos Country Pale Ale or the Avalanche Ale. I am Patrick Lyons.
I'm Brendan Vogt.
I'm Suzie Hunter.
Hey, friends.
We're about to do some more baseball talk.
It's good to be back.
I'm stoked. And yeah, we're happy to be talking baseball with you again.
It's the right time of year. I don't really want to talk baseball with you, Suzie, because I hate your baseball team. But other than that, I'm ready to get
By
into it.
my baseball team, he means the Philadelphia Phillies. He's not talking about the Mariners, of course, because officially as a company, we're a Mariners podcast now.
I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But of course, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about
Your
it.
Phillies are out of my club.
But my Phillies, the team that I grew up rooting for, they are doing a number on the Braves right now. At the time we're recording this, 4-1.
They're doing well in game one.
They're doing well in game one.
It's October. It's postseason baseball time, and maybe naturally, and it shouldn't feel natural, the Rockies are not a part of it. Let's see if we can somehow get to the bottom of this. What can we learn from the teams that are still alive here in the American League, National League? We'll talk about Nolan Arenado, because he's a guy that once had his finger on the pulse of the city. And, his team just got bounced. He's made comments in the past since he's left Colorado. We'll talk about that. And then just what October baseball means in this town, because it's now 15th anniversary. 15 years ago to this day, wow. There was a different group of people with a different company name sitting in this exact office talking about the Colorado Rockies in the postseason. Suzie, not literally. No one was in here. There was not another media company.
I don't know if this.
But
I'm like, I don't know where you're going.
Relatively speaking, there were people in this city actually able to celebrate the Rockies.
Yeah, and that is something I haven't seen at all in my time in Colorado. That's something I'm eager to see again for sure, especially this time of year. Baseball. If you're a baseball fan, you feel it. It's pumping in your blood right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, baseball we know is a marathon, and there's that wall that a lot of people hit when they run a marathon where there's like 4, 5, 6 miles left and you don't recover from.
Is this just you flexing about running half marathons and stuff?
It is.
I mean, I've read that numerous times. Mm-hmm. Actually, here's my flex. I've read that happens to people.
Okay.
Not me, but it happens to some people.
Patrick can't relate.
Yes, so there's the flex. There you go. You set me up for a pump sesh there. But when we talk about the Rockies this year, Suzie, you and I, we've done it a bunch, and it seems like the thing that they suffered from is something that the teams that are still alive haven't, and that is depth. You have to be able to deal with players getting injuries, even big name players, and be able to replace them with some competent guys. And that was definitely an area of weakness for the Rockies this season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously the biggest name that we've seen played the least is Chris Bryant for the Rockies. But every team has had big talent that has gone on the injured list.
Right.
The Phillies didn't have Bryce Harper for a while. Sorry, cover your ears. Every team has that story, though.
Right. I mean, San Diego trucking along despite what nearly looked like a derailing development in their season. But these are teams, I think, guys, that have spent some time working towards a winning culture. I think you're beyond sort of, depth as a front office might look at it. I think there's something to you work in those clubhouses and you're coming to work every day ready to get better. And if it's your chance to play, you're excited to do it because what's on the line could be glory, could be greatness. And for a lot of teams, the Rockies, unfortunately, are one of them right now. I don't know if that is the case. In fact, I know that it isn't.
Yeah, Buddy, I think, and probably just about every manager says this to their team in spring training, and I know that was very much the case in 17, 18, and 19 when they were still, in it in the wild card hunt. They actually had one of the top two or only two wild card seeds in late June. Is that it's going to take all 40 guys. It's going to take everybody in this room. So when you're down in spring training at Salt River Fields in Scottsdale, he's looking at all these guys saying, "Hey, it's going to take that." And so you saw that this year. A guy like Jake Bird getting called up. And Sean Bouchard. And those guys weren't even in the room. They weren't even in that clubhouse this past spring. So it does require all that. Yeah, to your point, Fernando Tatis Jr. was hurt. Walker Buehler's, obviously, his season is done for the Dodgers. Ozzie Albies for Atlanta. And yet, guys stepped up. At shortstop, Ha-Seong Kim did it. We know the Dodgers always end up finding pitchers. Mitch White, Ryan Pepiot are 2 rookie guys. But for the Dodgers, I think it was just really a matter of everybody else playing a little bit better. Tony Gonsolin, you're like, geez, this guy is going to get some Cy Young Award votes. Clayton Kershaw still doing his thing. And then Tyler Anderson, seemingly out of nowhere, steps in and steps up. So it doesn't even have to be a one-to-one replacement. It's just, again, guys picking up the slack and getting better. The Rockies, unfortunately, haven't had a guy in a while that they get him, and then he gets even better.
Well, go ahead.
Ooh, no, I was just scathing.
It's sad but true. I mean,
Think about
this year's team. I mean, who got better than last year? I mean, Brendan Rodgers had his 4 months that was really solid, but other than that, who was better than last year? I think Daniel Bard maybe okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's.
But we're literally almost talking about 2. Everyone else just kind of stayed exactly where they were when you look at their final numbers, or they did a little backsliding.
I think so much for professional athletes, there's a timing and a situation thing, right? A lot of these guys clear the threshold that they have the talent. But when you're in a situation that's designed to bring the best out of you, when you have only the controllables to worry about, yourself to worry about, and you can get on a roll, there's team success, you're succeeding. I think you see guys snowball the opposite, really. You see them build and evolve into the best versions of themselves. And that happens right now with the Dodgers. You know, back in the day, for me as a kid with the Cardinals, it felt like it didn't really matter which player was at bat. Whoever stepped up was ready to go. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of talented players in the Rockies organization right now, it's kind of the opposite effect. You're stepping into a situation where it's really hard for any one player to stand out, succeed, and turn the tide either individually or collectively or both.
Yeah.
And with Ezekiel Tovar, I mean, if you look at him, he's a guy they're turning the keys over to the shortstop position next year rather than, working him in slowly, like the Cardinals way. Like,
sure.
For better or worse.
As obnoxious as it is.
As obnoxious as it is. Best fans in baseball, as obnoxious as it is. But nevertheless, there's evidence to prove that. Like, all right, we're just going to insert somebody else because what they were doing down in AA and AAA is now going to work in the major leagues. That might not be happening quite as much with the Rockies. So it's setting those guys up for success, having some buffer around those guys. As you said, Suzie, Chris Bryant only had the 42 games this year. What happened when he went down? Like, who stepped up? Like, who was there for those other 100 games? I mean, Sean Bouchard had a good 1 month, but there was the opportunity there. Connor Joe maybe could have done it.
No one really stepped up in that big way. Yeah.
No, they really had that absence. Tyler Kinley in the bullpen, Jake Bird, might have stepped up a little bit, coming from the minor leagues, and he was used for some really big innings, but of course could not match, what Tyler Kinley was able to do.
Yeah.
And even Antonio Senzatella, they didn't have anybody. Ryan Feltner just essentially stepped in his shoes. So those were 3 guys that I think you're counting for a lot of production from.
Yeah.
And you didn't get it, and their replacements were okay, but that's why the record was okay to very much less than okay.
Very much less than okay. Would you say Tyler Kinley is another one of those guys who improved a lot this season despite the shortened sample size we have?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously he did take strides from last year, but what does it mean for next year? It's almost like, okay, we're going to kind of wait to determine that. It's like with Connor Joe. Yeah. You saw what he did last year in that final month, and you're like, oh, all right, we could have something here. This is very interesting. And you saw 2022 kind of, took a step back a little bit there, couldn't figure out some things. And so overall you look and you say, all right, he's been a good contributor to this team the last 2 years, but overall, I don't know that they found lightning in a bottle for more than just that, year and a half, if you will.
But I like the framing of the conversation because it's easy to look at the Rockies season and say it played out the way that it did because important players went down. But that's baseball. It is a long season, and
that's my favorite saying in baseball. That's baseball.
That's baseball.
That's baseball.
It does happen a lot. Doesn't it? It's virtually impossible, right? And I very few, if any, I think World Series winners, if you really were to comb through it, would say, yeah, this is full strength. This was Plan A. So. There's a lot of room between the Rockies and these teams for a lot of reasons, but one key ingredient here is enduring what's seemingly inevitable.
Yeah, I think one of the other big factors, again, that we can take away from the 8 remaining teams in the MLB postseason, what can the Rockies learn from them? You have to give something to get something. Of course, we are talking about trades. The last trade that the Rockies really won was in 2016 when they got Germán Marquez and just stole themselves, their ace from Tampa Bay in January of 2016. And we haven't really seen that many big acquisitions or even, again, substantial. Randall Grichuk was nice this year, but you did have to give up Raimel Tapia and a prospect. They're not doing that. And then even on the flip side saying, well, obviously we're out of the hunt. We're not going to acquire a big name player at the deadline, but maybe we can trade away a guy that is going to be on an expiring contract and we're not going to have around next year, and we can bring in a chip that could be useful next season and plan ahead. They're not doing that, whereas the other teams still alive and just most other teams in baseball, they are doing that.
Yeah, I still think it's so telling that the Rockies were the only ones who did nothing at the trade deadline.
Think about that. They literally didn't pick a direction. And
no one else did that. Everyone else did something.
It's true. And I mean, it's what the way Patrick just said it, it's a lot of these teams just cashed in a beefed up farm system for that guy that gets them over the top. But you also have to spend years beefing up that farm system.
Yeah.
You can't really just tread water in this league. And so we've talked about this, really hate advocating for a bottoming out approach or tanking or whatever, but there have been opportunities to cash in a veteran playing well at the right time who doesn't fit into this timeline into something beneficial, whether it's this guy is a part of our future or it's the next, asset in the cupboard. And they've sort of refused to do that. And it's really left them in a limbo, that's beyond frustrating for fans.
I really think the organization really failed at drafting and developing, going all the way back to 2015. Now, that was the year, of course, they had Brendan Rodgers, and we're finally seeing him come to fruition. But it took a very long time for that to finally happen. 2016 was Riley Pint, who I don't know that we're ever going to see. And again, he's just, he's an arm in the bullpen. A nice story for him having stepped away from the game and coming back. But again, forget all that. We don't even have to get into the names, but you look, and there's a reason why they're at the bottom of the farm system rankings each and every year. And then you even look now, Dan Zimborski tweeted this out a couple of days ago, and it was how many wins above replacement came from players age 25 or younger, and Rockies were dead last in the National League. I think they were second last in all of baseball. They just weren't getting young guys to contribute. That is a player development and draft and development issue.
Yeah, wow. That's I did not see that post, but dang.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about some of the teams in the postseason. I mean, they're out now, but the Rays, right? That's a team that when they were going through it, they at least nailed a lot of the picks, and they brought a lot of young talent in. You can't flounder those opportunities. Look, sports are literally designed to it's like a welfare program, right? The worse you get, the more bones they throw you, and you gotta nail some of them. And that's an ingredient for the Rockies here. It starts at drafting and developing, and then even beyond that, your farm system can be filled out through these trades that we talked about. And when you just sit on your hands, I mean, it's fun in the middle of the season to go, okay, they're a little more competitive than we thought, but the bottom line is still the same. And when there's no direction, it's hard for fans to have confidence.
The direction, and Suzie and I just talked about this on the DNVR Rockies podcast. We'll go ahead and plug that episode from today. Was had a lot to do with a letter that Dick Monfort, wrote to fans, to season ticket holders, basically just saying, hey, you're giving us unwavering support. This isn't acceptable, and the goal is to win a Rockies championship. I don't know what
whatever that means.
Whatever that is. Not a World Series. Now, hey, we're going to...
Rockies.
The goal is to win the World Series.
That's
the goal
number
is to win
one in
the NL
attendance.
West.
That's number one in attendance, by the way.
That's the Rockies championship. Or winning a series against the inevitable team that wins the World Series like they did in 2020. Or they can say, hey, we technically won a series against the Dodgers in LA because we won the Monday and Tuesday of that 3-game series of the 6. And however you want to finagle it in your head... I guess it makes sense, but I think the plan is almost to just not do anything too crazy that fans maybe will get upset about. And fans should rightfully get upset for a minute and talk about it. And so you may have to say, wow, we drafted this guy really high and we've been pumping him up, but he doesn't have the goods. let's go ahead and trade him. Let's
Right.
get something for him,
Right.
and kind of. It's not just you're admitting defeat and a loss. It's saying like, hey, look, we think we actually are going to have more and something better for our future by making this deal. And yes, it didn't work out with this player, but we think it's definitely going to work out much better with this player. And I think they're very much worried about that kind of shuffling.
I feel like the Rockies very much have like hoarder energy. It's like, no, we can't get rid of this.
so true.
What if we need it?
Yeah. That's actually a great point.
That's not bad. I like that.
Thank you.
Do you guys feel in some attempt at not optimism, but some of the recent call-ups do you see, all right, these are guys that you could see playing in this time of year. These are guys that, okay, maybe as they come through the pipeline, maybe there's some version of hope.
Yeah, if you're writing out the Rockies roster right now of what it looks like in 2025, when it seems like that's a more reasonable timeline, or 2026, there's not very many guys that you're of the young players that you're going to be writing in saying, we know Tovar's going to be there at shortstop. Tolia will probably be there at first base. Other than that, everything else is really up in the air. That's 3-4 seasons away. A lot can happen. A lot of trades can be made. Injuries can happen. But as far as like who should be, it's just Tovar and Tolia. And so we've just started that process of, as I've kind of phrased it, it's like the plane's been going down, and now with these young guys being put on the 40-man roster and playing at Coors Field for fans to see, the pilot is now pulling up on the yoke, and the treetops are rubbing along the bottom of the plane, but we're going back up. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, this thing's going down. Well, we're pulling back on the yoke, and it's going to be a couple years until we get up to 10,000 feet again. But we're yanking back on that yoke.
Patty stats, Patty analogy.
Yeah.
These are the things that I missed on your show.
The other thing that we can learn from the other postseason teams is you got to have stars. You got to have big players. You got to have impact players. I wrote last.
Usually they step up.
Hey now.
I won't get ahead of myself. We'll get there.
Yes.
Is this
That's
a Nolan
segment 2.
reference?
Maybe.
It's okay.
I wrote last
okay.
offseason that, think about this. This might be mind-blowing. Going into the offseason, the Rockies on their roster had only 2 players who had ever made an all-star team.
Oh, wow.
Herman Marquez and Charlie Blackmon. That was it. They needed some kind of star power. Obviously, they got Chris Bryant. Hey, Jose Iglesias, he had 1 all-star appearance at one point in his career. Same thing with Alex Collier, but that was the lowest that they ever had gotten of players with any like name recognition whatsoever in the National League. Of the 41 all-stars, 20 of them came from the 4 teams that are still alive right now. 16 of 40 in the American League. And so, obviously, the all-star team is made up of really good players. Those really good players contribute to teams who win more games. But even still, you got to have players who can step up and play really well. This is now the 3rd time in Rockies history that they now have had back-to-back seasons of 1 representative in the All-Star game.
Oof.
They've never had 3. We'll see if they're in danger of that happening next year. They need more stars, even still right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Rockies do not have that star power. And I guess, hoping to get that kind of energy back when Chris Bryant joined the team, but he's been
Poor choice of words.
Pretty
Yeah, when it's tough, right when a couple of stars, or at least star caliber players, just walked or were traded for not much. And then the investment comes on an injury-prone player. And it's easy to, in hindsight, pile on Chris Bryant. I hope the best for the guy, super talented. And I hope for the best for the signing. It was aggressive from a new regime, and I liked that. But there is a little bit of, well, hey, the other guys might have at least played. So, A, you need stars. B, you got to get those signings right. And then C, as we all know, this is cyclical. There was a time, we're going to talk about it later in the show, where if you were around Denver, you might think, wow, I want to be a part of this. Sign me up for this.
Yeah.
And that's clearly not what stars are thinking right now, and understandably so. So, but again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Colorado, as bad as it is under Monfort now, it's not like a ghost town. It's not like when Tampa Bay's bad and it's irrelevant and no one cares and no one's watching. There's fertile grounds here, and that's why people, I think, get so upset.
Yeah. We live in a win economy where if you're not winning, that vibe isn't there. The people are there. They want it, right? They're still going out to Coors Field to see that. But the vibe is missing if the wins aren't there.
Right,
But that vibe's not missing at the DNVR bar here on the corner of Colfax in York.
Welcome back.
I didn't even know.
Well, look, but look, being a member, or even if not, sometimes there's a lot of perks, because if you go to DraftKings Sportsbook and use code DNVR, all you got to do is make a $5 bet if you're a new customer, and you're going to get $200 in free bets if your winner ends up winning this week in the NFL. If that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. And to make it all the more easier, you can throw down stepped up same game parlays once per day, all season long on game day. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet. That's code DNVR only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See link in the description for details. Brendan, I don't know if you went on Game Time app close to tip-off last night, but I imagine people, just like we say here, 60% off the ticket price. I imagine you got a couple good steals down there at Ball Arena.
There were some great deals. There were some seats available in preseason action. But what I love about Game Time is whether you can sort of predict that or not. Preseason game, some seats available.
Yeah.
Or a really intense game that you still want to put your butt in the seat. It's all possible with Game Time. You can tell us more about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, we got a link in our description, so make sure you check that out so you can be part of the 15 million people who've used Game Time, and it helps us out, when you use that link. But you're right. Those ticket brokers or some people who just can't go to the event, they're willing to take anything, even if it is, Nuggets, Lakers, whatever it is. At that point, boom, a ticket becomes available, and all of a sudden, maybe you're able to get in if you're solo or with a friend or two. So it's really great for concerts as well as all kinds of events to get some amazing seats you never thought you could get with Game Time. I never thought that the Rockies would have to but they'd have to give $50 million for another team to take a future Hall of Famer. But that was the situation last February 1st was when the deal became official in 2021, where Arenado went to the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think for the most part, fans don't have any hatred towards Nolan Arenado, but they may have some hate towards the situation, and some of that might rub off on Nolan. What's your take on what you've heard from Rockies fans as far as their feelings about Nolan Arenado? Because I think overall they're like, it is what it is. But there are some that have that little bit of hate in their heart maybe at how it all went down.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, if you look at Nolan's logic of just wanting to contend and compete and be a part of that, and I think most people are going to say, well, we get it. We get it. We'd prefer it happened here. It wasn't happening here around you. But I don't know if that's universal. And these cracks are starting to show a little bit, but however few they were, Nolan also did have his opportunities in Colorado. And the sample size is small, but he has yet to write himself into baseball history for as talented as he is. Put his stamp on a moment. And the Rockies as a team did have that moment. And the Cardinals this year had a chance at having that moment, and Nolan himself didn't. So that's a whole discussion to unpack. But I know there are at least some Colorado fans who feel, hey, it's not as if you necessarily did all you could. I don't know how you guys feel about it. And I certainly don't want to speak for any fan in particular, but I certainly clearly talked to a lot of them here at the bar and in Denver.
Yeah. I know there's just so many unknowns with what happened behind the scenes with that situation. I feel like maybe I'm projecting like maybe a little bit how I feel on fans, but I feel like a lot of Rockies fans enjoy to see what Nolan's up to and if he's doing well. But if there's a reason for us to look at him and be like, oh, well, I bet he wishes he was still a Rocky. Yeah. I'm going to jump on that too.
And I'm sure, Patrick, a lot of that is influenced by the fact that it's the Cardinals, right? And it's certainly not an ideal alternative destination for him, for Rockies fans.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And the separation between Arenado and the Rockies got off to a less than stellar start on Nolan's side because he made certain comments that were picked up, and I don't think he meant anything by it. He's not the most eloquent person as far as word choice is concerned, but a lot of people picked up on it like, what, we're not winners here. Like,
right.
Not the city and not the people, not the fans. It's more of the team. And so, he put his foot in his mouth a couple times last year that I think kind of underlined the fact that Nolan, wasn't a saint, I guess, in how it all played out. But at the end of the day, I mean, here we're sitting almost 2 years after that, and there's a lot more vitriol about the front office and the ownership of the Rockies than that. And so I think that, if that was somewhat different, then maybe you would have a situation where people would be more upset and pissed at Nolan Arenado because, oh man, that one piece would have been really nice on this roster. They are 2 or 3 Nolan Arenados away from contending with this current roster.
And why villainize him when you have some obvious villain candidates, right? That can stare you in the face.
Yeah, there's exactly. Well said.
So I don't, having described that dynamic, I definitely do not want to imply that I'm starting the maybe Nolan was wrong. Maybe Nolan was wrong for this thing. I'm not really doing that, but I do think it's a complicated relationship. But some of it, guys, some of it is that it's hard to remember now, but the Rockies weren't always a disaster with Nolan here, and there was a chance for him and them to be winners. And it's not just that Nolan abandoned that, if you were to use that word. Sort of feels like ownership and the various front offices have as well.
Yeah, well, Dick Monfort picked his general manager over Nolan Arenado. And again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes between Bridich and Arenado exactly. So maybe it was a situation where you say, well, you can't encourage that certain behavior if Nolan Arenado did have certain behavior and say, so I have to go with my GM. But obviously that is how it ends up looking, which is unfortunate. But to your point, Brendan, 2017 and 2018, they were in the postseason, the wild card game. They got bounced pretty quickly, only went 1 for 5. But he did have a homer there. So
that's true.
Not bad for his first game. And then in 2018, the wild card game, 1 for 5, did have an RBI. And then in that series against Milwaukee, I mean, all of the Rockies' bats really went quiet. He went 2 for 11. And since then, he's 1 for 12. It's okay. 1 for 12 with St. Louis. But so he has a career postseason batting average of 152. Not great.
It's a small sample. It's a small sample size,
and the longest series he's been in is the 3 with Colorado, and then a 2-game series. Otherwise, they're all like 1-game sets for the wild card game. So you could look past that, and also too, at the end of the day, there are a lot of guys who get paid for the 162 or get paid for the regular season, and you say when you get to the postseason, that's something else.
Yeah,
because you're not going to get to the postseason if you don't put up and post those numbers during the regular season, and we know Nolan does post.
I come from a spoiled fan base, a really spoiled and entitled fan base, and the defense is awesome, and the production this year in the regular season was awesome. It's not going to satiate. It's not going to satisfy that fan base. You got to perform when it matters most, and there is something to it with. Like, Albert Pujols was on the roster this year somehow. Can't believe I got to see that one more time. And even in that last game, the team had nothing. Pujols goes 2 for 4, and he's 1,000 years old. And a small part of me, I really hate to go so puff my chest out. Like, I know the Cardinals aren't really, but like big market fan or whatever. But part of me is like, that's what a star looks like, man. You got to deliver in these moments. And hopefully Nolan gets more opportunities to. As far as the talent, as far as the regular season, he is a great baseball player. But as far as being one of the greats, you have to author a great moment. And there's been opportunity for Nolan, and he hasn't looked like a superhero yet.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what? He did get to win the division, which is all he wanted.
That's gonna, not that there are any Cardinals fans that really are probably watching, and the Rockies fans hate every time I mention them, but that phrase is triggering because they're tired. They're tired of division wins. Go win something else. Again, spoiled fan base, but that's it's what Nolan wanted to be a part of, and all of this comes with it as well.
Did you know that his one hit that he did get was had a 72 mile per hour exit velocity? So it was kind of lucky. But he also had 4 different outs in that 1 for 8, 96.7, 96.9, 98.1, 98.9, 103.7 off the bat and it was an out.
There was some hard contact, and it's not. And baseball's a cruel game,
It
and
is.
that's why you have to focus on the small sample size.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you're not guaranteed a large sample size in those moments, in those high leverage moments. You may only get so many opportunities in your career, and so if Nolan wants to be that guy, the next time it comes around, he has to step up, or this is gonna be a narrative that carries with him, that he carries with him.
He did say something this season that didn't get him in too much hot water. So last year he did get the standing ovation when he first came back. I don't know that I heard really any boos. I think maybe I was like, oh, those two people over there might have booed. They were close to me, so I heard it from the press box. Didn't hear any of that. And it seemed like almost every game, his first at-bat, people were coming to the ballpark to see him. Like, hey, this is that reunion. So he kind of got that standing ovation for all those games. Didn't happen this year when he came up to bat. So I think that was just that maybe is shows you there's a little crack there, right? In that relationship, and that it's not Nolan, you're still the all-time greatest. Not the case with how it went down.
But how long are you gonna give a guy a standing ovation who's not on your team? I feel like the standing ovation is like, you know what? This is us saying goodbye because we didn't get a chance to. I mean, how much longer are Rockies fans expected to? It would be weird. I feel like
that's a fair point, because I'm like, I can't think of anyone else that every time this person goes back, to that ballpark is getting that kind of greeting. There was almost literally hardly any applause. It was just like, oh, okay, Nolan's up. And so it was almost, he was even acknowledged, which was even less than what I expected. But yeah, you're right. But I just thought it was interesting that there was definitely no pomp and circumstance at all this year.
I am with Suzie. Like, he can't expect that.
No.
He did whether he was standing on high ground or not when he made his decisions to move on. Those were decisions he made, right? I know he was ultimately traded, but we know that there was some mental turning of the page on his part as well, and being ready to leave. So I when you go and when you sort of, I know he probably still loves this fan base and this city, but that being mutual is not guaranteed, especially when you leave. Carmelo Anthony still going through that, even still in this phase of his career, wanting to be retired and remembered as a Nugget. Guess what, man? It's been a long time. There are Nuggets fans who care, but there are also Nuggets fans who this is not what their fandom is about anymore, and so it goes.
Yeah.
It's like breaking up with someone and expecting, like, no, we have to still be friends.
Right. Good friends.
We have to be great friends. It's like,
we should hug every time we see each other. You're like, it's been a few years.
The quote that he did say that got, a little bit of backlash from fans, but when you hear the whole thing, it's like, okay, that makes sense. He was talking about returning here for the first time since the first time, and just said, last year was pretty hard coming here, to be quite honest. I didn't really enjoy it. That sounds bad, but continued saying, I enjoyed the crowd and the fans. They made me enjoy it. Didn't get the standing ovation this year. So, he was just acknowledging, like, yeah, this was kind of hard going back to that place.
Right.
That it all happened, and he was the guy here, and he's no longer there. So it's like acknowledging, oh man, here's this broken relationship.
Right.
And so I think people took that with a grain of salt and didn't, dissect it, saying, wait a minute, you never got a standing ovation because you never got the curtain call. It's like, well, you can't get a curtain call when a game is over.
Right.
It doesn't happen like that. It's to be during the game.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I'm glad he said the words, I didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Because I'm like, that's honest, and like that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, F this place,
Right,
it's just I thought that was a very open and honest moment, or a very open and honest statement about just, that's part of the mental aspect of all this, it's like, hey, I didn't like it. And I don't need to like show up here and be like, yeah, like this was a lovely moment.
And to me, I look projecting, inferring, whatever. I'm sure his plan A was for it to all work out here. Yeah. I'm sure it's hard for him because it did not work out as he planned. And that's, if we go with the relationship analogy, those are the hardest people to see again, right? Yeah. The ones you really wanted it to work out with, but it just wasn't meant to be. So
that's why he signed the long-term extension. It wasn't any kind of chess game of, hey, I want to get paid and then leverage that to go somewhere else. It was, all right, This is what they're telling me to do. These are my guys. I came up with them. I even saw some of them. I've been under their tutelage. Now I'm tutoring these guys. This is great. I want to be here for a while. And then it became evident pretty quickly the team is not going to do the necessary things that winning teams do to win,
right,
as we discussed in that first segment. But Brendan, we've got to discuss the Serbia documentary right now. Ani Vodka, who we know is the new GOAT in Colorado sports. Make sure you check that out. evoca.tv/DNVR to watch, Nuggets, Avs, DU, CSU, you name it. You get $10 off your first 3 months. Otherwise, it's $25 per month plus a $5 receiver. But that's the only place that you're going to be able to see the Serbia documentary. Wow. I mean, what is it like kind of reliving it now, seeing the clips?
Yeah, having the trailer out now, which you can see on social at DNVR Nuggets, it's really fun, really exciting, fun to relive, get those juices flowing again. When we went to Serbia, the idea was to bring that experience to you, to essentially bring you with us, not just through the daily content, but through this long-form project we're really excited about. And we think it fills out the reason why you might want to have an Avoca subscription. It's the live games themselves. That's appealing. Strangely difficult to get around here.
Strangely
and
difficult.
And then, your favorite teams in those live games, and then your favorite coverage of those favorite teams. That's where we come in. We've got our own channel on Avoca. And then this final layer, and it's that exclusive content, the Serbia project, and hopefully more projects like it to come. We kind of want to build this out like the Netflix of Colorado sports fandom. You log on to Avoca for the day, you got everything you need to tap into it. And so we're really grateful to Avoca for helping us get this project off the ground, and we're excited for you all to see it.
Yeah, and I'm excited that Liquid Death got on board. I mean, look, Suzie and I were batting leadoff, and we got on base. But look, doesn't mean anything if you can't have other people follow through in the clutch, and so many people in the company did follow through. So, yeah. Liquid Death, man.
Liquid Death is great. Keel's drinking one right over there.
He's got the tall boy.
Has me really
tall boy water.
Do you guys want to know my Liquid Death story? First time I got one, I was in a Choice Market across the street. Real certain I was purchasing myself one alcoholic beverage.
And so you were looking to fill a buzz?
Hey, throw one back, right? That's what I thought I was doing. Because look at the branding. It's sick, and it looks like a tall boy. Much to my pleasant surprise, it was delicious water, and I needed that more than booze. I didn't know that until I had it. And so now I go back and I look for those Liquid Death cans. I know what I'm getting.
That's hilarious.
I know how to get them because I get them at my local Safeway, 7-Eleven, King Supers, Stinkers, or Alta, or find a Liquid Death retailer near me with the store locator tool. That's liquiddeath.com/DNVR, liquiddeath.com/DNVR. Mountain spring water from the Alps in 3 flavors, still or sparkling. Come on, what a treat.
Such a treat.
Look, we like being kind to our neighbors, but not to our thirst. Murder that
thirst.
With Liquid Death.
Murder it.
Oh my gosh. Patrick.
Absolutely.
The Phillies are murdering my bets today.
Do you guys want an update? No. Phillies got the bases loaded right now. Still 4-1. Still leading.
Oh, no. I'm ahead of you. Oh,
my gosh. It's 6-1. I just updated.
Yep.
Yes.
It's an exciting time. October baseball. It's
what parlay do you have going on right now?
I tried to nail the winner of every game today, and I took all of the favorites, but I had the Guardians upsetting the Yankees. But your Phillies are upsetting me again.
That's the one. I got Guardians in 4 there. My DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week. Yeah, this is such a fun time, and it's, we just got to experience it with the Avalanche, obviously. Nuggets, too, the last couple seasons, the bar gets jumping, and we didn't have the bar in 2018 or 2017. 2017, there were no home games. It was a wild card game. It was over just like that in a matter of an Archie Bradley triple. Unfortunately, sorry if that's not triggering for some people. But 2007, man, that was the year. And, we were talking to Mitchell, good old Mitchell there, who works for DNVR Rapids. And he just talked about going to all of these games late in the season and in the postseason, and just how quite literally the place to be in the baseball world at that time in 2007 was Denver. Like that was if Marlins Man. Are you a big fan of Marlins Man?
I'm very familiar with Marlins,
but not a fan. Just
I don't know if I would call myself
a fan of Marlins Man.
I am, and my dad. We like watching a game. We go, "Hey, is Marlins Man at this game?" We just have a curiosity.
You're a fan of a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I met him. I shook his hand at the winter meetings a couple years ago. I'm like, "Hey, nice to meet you, Marlins Man." No, I'm not a picture guy.
That's too much.
Yeah, I just like, "Hey, what's up, Marlins Man?" He was still decked out in all orange, so you can see him from a mile away in the casino there at the winter meetings. But Marlins Man, if he was doing his Marlins thing in 2007, he would have been at Coors Field, like because that just was the spot. The juice was there, the energy is there. There's no city better. Yeah, there's no city better than Denver when it comes to the postseason. And Rockies actually have that in their history in 2007.
I'm so envious and jealous and, happy to be here now, but really wish I could see that. I don't.
Yeah.
To me, look, I cover basketball. I love many sports, but postseason baseball has a magic to it that I tap into, I think, more than the others. And the city comes alive, and this city in particular was roaring to life at that time. And it was so long ago now, but that's what we were talking about earlier. That's what's possible. Yeah. Right. When ownership and the players and if everyone's invested in producing and on the same page, that's what this fan base could have. That's what those players could have. That's what ownership could have. And that is why it's a particular shame. This isn't one of those orgs that you say, let's pick them up and move them. Why are they playing there? Who cares? No. This is one of those orgs that if baseball is healthiest, the Rockies are good. And it's not healthy right now.
Yeah. Well said for sure. Yeah, the vibes. I wish I was around here in 2007. I hate that kind of energy is in the Rockies' past and not even remotely close to the present.
Yeah, and not in the imminent future either. It would seem.
What there's a couple games each season when you got a sold out crowd on a Friday and Saturday night where it's vibing a little bit. As far as like passionate baseball fans that are there, they're paying attention and it's a good game, and you go, okay, this is something, because that's what it felt like in 2018. That was my first year in the company. And going to those games, they were never out of it. There were times where they'd be down by 2 runs going to the bottom of the 8th, and I'm like, nah, they're going to win this game. And they would. Like that's the kind of team that they had, and that was the kind of the vibe that was in the ballpark there, where it was possible and people were sitting on their edge of their seats, and they had that belief, and it was a great time. And then flash forward 2 years later, and I've told this story before. It was against the Angels on a Saturday night. Charlie Blackmon hit a walk-off grand slam during that pandemic season. Ball went over the fence. He rounded the bases. The players barely even came out of the dugout to celebrate. He walked into the dugout, dead silence, seconds after a walk-off grand slam in an empty stadium. And it was like, this city doesn't even know what just happened here.
No, it happened, right.
And it was, and that was the world at that time, right, where it didn't seem relevant. But when the team does have relevance and baseball is at the center of everything in October, there's just not a better time.
And this is one of the ingredients, sticking with the theme of the show. I mean, the team feels that. The team feeds off that. And you will see not bad, with regards to a playoff field, right? Mediocre playoff teams ride that wave much longer than they have any business doing so into the postseason.
Yeah.
I've seen it before. Many fan bases have seen it before. The Mariners, we haven't seen it in the postseason yet. They'll get there eventually. But that energy in the park down the stretch when it looked like they might make the playoffs again, when it looked like they might get to taste that feeling again, right? You better believe the players were coming to the park every day, night, hoping to get that response, to be a part of that. It can will a team forward, and it can be something here in Colorado. The next time this team, whenever it is competitive, particularly competitive, it's going to be embraced by a ferocious wave of fandom.
Ferocious wave.
And I want to see it again.
Yeah, so I didn't live here back in 2017 and 2018, but I was coming out here quite a bit. So I remember being here at the end of September, beginning of October, and the energy was much different than it is this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
exciting, and I want it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, Brendan, with that feeling in the clubhouse when the players get that support from the fans, that was what it was like in 1995 when Coors Field first opened up. A lot of that also had to do with the fact that, with the Blake Street Bombers, they felt like they were in any game. They could be down 7 runs and they were going to come back. But a lot of that had to do with the fan support, getting over 4 million fans in 1993 and on a pace to break that record in 1994, their second year of existence. Coors Field opens up. They play a game with Scabs, replacement players. That was actually the first game at Coors Field, and not the one that we all remember with Dante Bichette. But the fans spurned that on in such a major way. And so you go from 93, 94, 95, from when they didn't exist to when they went to the World Series in 2017. That was 14 years from nothingness here on the corner of 20th and Blake to their first World Series. And we've yet to have that again in the last 15. That's kind of where we're at. That's kind of the apathy right now, I think, that a lot of people have.
That timeline, every time I hear you lay out that timeline, it upsets me to my core. It's crazy how fast time flies, too.
And crazy how futile it feels now for an org that, if you actually look through the history, it's not... You're not talking about a laughingstock. You're not. No. You're talking about a team that even actually relatively recently would be better than how bad they are now suggests. And so it's, again, I guess I'm really repeating myself, but that's why I think fans have tried the apathy thing this year. They've tried. Yeah. And it'll build the longer the ownership ignores it. But the truth is it's been more anger than apathy because they care and they want to care, as they should.
Yeah. I like that. I like the way you put that. They want to care.
They want to.
It's hard to be apathetic.
And look, these are, when you've tasted it, as you mentioned, that the city has, it's only sports can give you that. And if that's something that you feel and love and appreciate, it's not something you can just shoo away. It's a part of you. So
yeah, no, that's I think the anger comes from the fact that ownership said, all right, well, hey, this thing didn't work out. It didn't work out with Nolan Arenado. GM ends up quitting, early in the 2021 season. All right, we got to change direction. We got to do maybe some things differently, look outside the organization. They don't do that. Nothing happens last year at the trade deadline other than Michael Givens. And it's like, oh, is this going to be the same thing again? But we got a new guy in charge, so let's give him a chance. And then March happens after the lockout, and you go, okay. I think a lot of people looking at the roster weren't inspired to say, oh, this is a postseason team now all of a sudden with Grichuk, Iglesias, Colomé, Cool, Chris Bryant. Man, they're going to win one of the 3 wildcard spots. No, but you say, I feel better about this team. Mm-hmm. Now, you know what? Maybe they are doing the things that they said they haven't done in the past that they need to do. And then we have the season that we had, nothing at the trade deadline again, and the kind of the same general comments, coming from ownership in the front office, where it doesn't really sound like it's broke to fix it. It's not going well, but it's definitely not broke. And when you've only made the postseason 5 times in your 30 years of existence, that's not great. That's not great. You never won the division. That's not great.
No.
No.
I wish I had more to add to that. It's not great, Bob. It's not.
Do either of you have a favorite baseball postseason memory or experience that you've been a part of?
I mean, Phillies World Series, went down to the parade, ended up in the parade, ended up in one of Gary Barbera's floats. Not the floats, the convertibles, but yeah, in the parade.
Oh, cool.
I was in the parade.
Well, I saw you at the parade. You were on the median, and you were raising your hand up, and everyone,
I was
were
the
cheering.
baby.
You were the baby.
I was the baby.
Your hand went up, and then it went down. Do you know this clip? Oh, it's the best. That was Suzie. You didn't know that.
That was me.
That was Suzie.
That was Suzie.
And then for me, 2011 Game 6, what I think is one of the best baseball games ever played. And if you're a Cardinals fan, one of the best results to ever go down. The Freeze home run, the Freeze moments in that game. And I was in college and a freshman. And so it was my first time doing this whole thing away from my dad. Like many people, baseball, my parents, this is something that it goes hand in hand.
It's a family sport.
It's a family sport. We inherit our fandom from mothers, from fathers. Mm-hmm. We inherit it from our parents, and we share it with our parents. And was away from them, but in that moment I felt very, very connected to them, and it was the best. It was the best. It's why you keep coming back year after year. I'm getting emotional. I'm literally tearing up.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
That's it. I only went to game 3 of the NLDS in 2018, the Rockies and Brewers, without my dad. So my dad's always been with me.
Yeah.
And any of the postseason games I went to was at the Jeffrey Mayer game. The kid reaches over, pulls the ball back. It's a Derek Jeter home run. Tony Tarasco's in right field going. I would have caught it. Some kid just reached out and grabbed the ball. Big moment. I was infuriated because I thought they were just going to replay the game from that point. Everything that happened after that was great. But probably my favorite, because I've been to a couple of other ones, was sitting out in the bleachers at Yankee Stadium, and a couple rows up, some guys say something to my dad's 2 buddies. My dad's kind of oblivious, and then he realizes what's going on. He drops a couple F-bombs. They drop a couple F-bombs. Middle finger, throwing beer. And now I'm holding on to my dad's leg. He's like 6'3", 250 pounds. He's going after the guy, and we get kicked out of the bleachers. And afterwards, my dad was like, well, that was fun. And then we had to figure out what we were going to tell my mom. So, yeah, I've been kicked out of the bleachers there. But not because I was fighting. It was my dad. He was the one.
I love this. I wish that at baseball fights was around. My favorite Twitter account is MLB Fight Club.
Nothing was thrown. It was more of I'm trying to get at you because we're like 4 rows apart.
Yeah.
You misheard what I said. Hey, mind your own business.
Oh, this is
You
good.
showed up late. And then, and then my dad's buddy was like telling security, hey, that helmet head, the guy with the fireman's cap on, he was also in it too. So he ended up getting ejected. So we had a good time. We had a good laugh about it. And
are you allowed back at
memories.
Yankee Stadium?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, you get a punch card. Like that was my one.
Yeah.
That was my one.
How many punches do you get on the punch card?
It's a reward system, actually.
27. So it's one for every World Series. So each time they win, if they win a World Series, you're allowed back in after getting that ban. So I think it's actually a fairly good system. So
Can I ask you guys? I know I'm not the host. Right before we go here,
Yeah.
Who do you guys think is going to win the old World Series?
The old World Series.
Doosan LG Twins and the Doosan Bears. That's KBO. I don't know. I can't quite figure it out. This extra round of the postseason is going to be really interesting to see how it goes out. I think the teams that have the first round bye probably have the biggest advantage.
I don't know if that's an advantage.
But I don't know either.
Your team's coming in hot.
I don't think that bye was an advantage at all. I think depending on the team, I think people are going to get a little too comfortable. The rest is not going to, it's going to get them out of their groove. I don't think it's going to affect like the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers will be fine.
It could very well affect the Yankees. We may have wanted to see them.
I think it'll affect the Yankees.
Yeah.
It affected the Rockies in 2007 because they swept the Diamondbacks in 4. They had to wait for the Red Sox to finish up their series. And they kind of came in cold after having all of that momentum. Mm-hmm. And you know what they say about momentum? It gets snuffed out when you get a first round bye Kale's got his hand over there to ending. We're not ending yet. We're not ending. We're talking about the literal momentum phrase this time. But yeah, you lose that momentum with days off. And so I think it's still probably going to be Dodgers, Houston.
I think that's a really that's what
I
would.
That's boring.
They are the two best
but
teams.
But if I had to go with like a little outside the box, I think I would take Cleveland and Atlanta, which isn't that far outside, but Cleveland and Atlanta.
All right. Just curious.
The Guardians versus the Atlantans.
I would I gotta say my heart's with the Mariners, of course. Gotta love a story like that.
You're crazy if you don't love the Mariners story.
That's right. Or you're a Blue Jays fan.
That was what I said. I said Blue Jays, Seattle. They're kind of in their own unique group as far as fun teams you want to root for. Mm-hmm. And I think Cleveland's probably the next most fun right after the Mariners at that point with the youngest team.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be a fun one.
What is the least fun team?
Dodgers,
Yankees.
Dodgers, Yankees.
Yankees.
I think Yankees maybe a little bit. Dodgers aren't. There's nothing fun about them, but there's something extra not fun maybe about the Yankees. I don't know. They lack any funness.
I agree. Also, their fan base is miserable watching this team.
Mets are miserable. The Mets fan base is the most miserable of them all.
Do you blame
But
them?
Yankees are right there.
Yeah.
The Yankees are definitely right there.
I think the Phillies are a fun team, though.
They are a fun team.
I don't think we're talking
They're
about
a really
this enough.
fun team. They're playing well at the right time.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's the key, is playing well at the right time.
And look, it's hard
All that
to
matters.
it's hard when you have to face a team that can score 6 runs in the 9th inning on the road, as they've done in recent postseason games. Who you got in the World Series? Who's your World Series, Brendan?
I like the Stros this year, and I do think it's gonna be the Dodgers. I'm with you guys. It's boring, but
Yeah.
Look at us all agreeing. This makes for terrible podcasting, but
Does Bryce Harper win a World Series this year with Kyle Schwarber, the Party Boys? That's a good story.
That would be awesome.
We'll have to talk about it this week on the Rockies pod, like the best kind of fun stories that you can fantasy write. Do some fantasy
We'll
booking.
write some fan fiction.
We will.
That's what we said we were going to do in the off season.
That's true. That's right. Well, we've got plenty of time to do that. It's going to be fun. Hey, I'm on Twitter at Patrick D. Lyons.
I'm at Brendan Vogt.
And I'm at the Suzie Hunter on all platforms.
Follow us on at DNVR_Rockies, at DNVR Nuggets, and at DNVR_Sports. And don't forget, Adaptogen Sorbo, our great producer, a.k.a. the Tincture Guy, at Kale Sorbo for great pictures of Rocky Mountain National Park and other things. Now on sale, Kale?
I mean, please buy my art.
We're pumping this guy up. We're pumping you up, Kale. I'm telling you, man, you're going to have a great day.
Yes.
And despite that great day and despite that momentum, you know what they say about momentum? It's only as good as your next TDSP. So I'll see you next time I'm on TDSP.